This video is pointless and doesn't have to be this long. All you have to do is pick up these books if you haven't already and go read them now.
Do it.
Hey folks, thank you for joining me here today. My name's Dylan, the Spaced Out Wizard. I give myself this title because I have an attention span issue. I started reading so I could grow my attention span and start focusing on things for a longer period of time. And let's just say attention span was not an issue for this series in the slightest. I finished up reading the First Law series last week, The Last Argument of Kings, and I can confidently say this is a top 10 series all time for me. I absolutely loved it. And I think this is definitely a series we can call must-read fantasy. And I just wanted to break down today why I love this series, why I think people should read it, and just what my overall thoughts were. But before we dive any further into the video, make sure you like the video. It really helps out the channel. Subscribe. And while you're down there, please comment your favorite First Law character if you've read the series, or if you haven't read the series, let me know why you haven't picked this up yet. Firstly, I wanted to start off with talking about grimdark fantasy and what it is, because when you hear the word grimdark, you immediately associate that with First Law. Having a book that just feels dark, just an ominous feeling of grittiness and just a sense of realness is what I associate grimdark with. Though more and more as I read, I less and less like the term grimdark, and especially reading something like First Law. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's gritty. Yes, it's dark. But just grimdark just doesn't feel appropriate for me. I found this to be fun. Maybe I'm twisted and sadistic. Like my favorite Sun Eater book is Kingdoms of Death, which, if you can guess by the name, the darkest book in the series. And I'm currently reading The Five Warrior Angels, which is just all morally black characters, and I love it. So I might just tend to like more darker things. I might just be more twisted in the mind. But this was just fun reading. Yes, there's dark things, but the way Joe Abercrombie writes is there's an element of humor to these things. And there's always a sense of hope, or maybe I'm just personally putting that sense of hope in there, where Joe is always going to give you belief that his characters are going to do something really good and make the right decision. Now they don't, they never do really, but there's always that feeling of it. So I just didn't find this a gloomy and dark read. I felt this just fun. So if you're scared about this being too dark for you, I wouldn't worry. Joe does it in a way where the darkness is fun. There might be a torture scene and you might be laughing because of the internal monologue of our twisted character. Yes, there's some gore. Yes, there's some emotional abuse. There's some physical abuse. But as a whole, this is just compelling reading and really good fantasy. So although it's dark compared to something like a Sanderson, if you compare it to like John Gwynn's writing, the darkness is about the same level, but just more morally grey characters in First Law, where in John Gwynn's books, it's more good versus evil. And then in comparison to something like Brian Lee Durfee or Jay Kristoff's writing, it's a lot lighter than that. Now let's dive into what this series is about and what makes it so good. Now our story here centers around probably the strongest kingdom in this world, but our kingdom is not in a strong place at the moment. Our king is very weak. He's constantly falling asleep and he's kind of losing his mind a little bit, and he's on the verge of death. And his two sons, the two princes, they're absolutely useless. And the people running this country, like the small council, if you will, they're very much all vying for power themselves. So the kingdom's not in a great state, and there's just a lot of individuals vying for their own personal power. So the political intrigue is just turned up to the max. And if you're someone that loves political intrigue and books, there's a lot to sink your teeth into and have a great time with. Because as we're having internal conflict in our kingdom, well, there's also external conflict. The Northmen are uniting and coming south, and then there's the Gurkish in the south who are also marching north. So our country in the middle that has stretched to multiple continents is being attacked from both ends, but is also weak from within. So yes, you can see like the Game of Thrones sort of influence there. Enemies from without, individuals vying for power from within. So that part of the plot is very interesting. But let's dive into what makes the First Law so incredible. And if you've heard about the series before, you've heard about the character work. Joe Abercrombie's characters are among the best in fantasy. And what Joe does that makes his characters so good is he makes them so believable. You love his characters not because they're great people, but because you know them for who they are. We've got a stuck-up lordling that is an absolute coward, and you just understand why he's a coward. You understand why he's stuck up, and all of his decisions make sense, and you can appreciate him for that. You know, at times he might try to do something good, but he just can always fall back into his ways. But he's just such an understandable character because Joe can just put you in their heads, make you understand why they love themselves for who they are, and you can just really appreciate them. Now, my unpopular opinion when it comes to the characters of the First Law world, a lot of people's favorite character is Logan Ninefingers, who is a older warrior from the north, who's he's the most likable and sane person in the group. He's been there, done that, kind of just wants to be over the fighting, but just keeps getting dragged back in. Very relatable character, very great, really good. And my unpopular opinion is he's not the best character. For me, what makes the First Law so compelling is the characters Giselle and Glokta. I'm used to having a character like Logan, who's the older, more grumpy dude being pulled back into the fighting, who's really good at fighting. But we don't often get a stuck-up lordling that's an absolute coward. Usually our younger male POV is just going on a training arc, learning how to fight and just overcoming odds, just working hard to do cool things, which is fantastic. I love Corbin, I love Kaelin, I love Aragorn, all those sorts of characters, all great. But getting someone different and outside of that, trying to fill that role, but not feeling it in the stereotypical way was so fun. And I think everyone just loves Glokta, a former stuck-up lordling who was really good at fighting and really good at war, ending up getting captured and tortured. And then we follow him in the First Law as he is a torturer working for the Inquisition. Super compelling. How often do you get to be in the head of someone who is a torturer, but also someone who's been tortured and just really deformed and has just a really twisted outlook on life? Super compelling. What makes First Law so good is that we get different characters from the norms. We're not just following the stereotypical leaders. The focus of this story are different POVs than what you'd normally get in the story. So summing everything up into why you should read the First Law trilogy, this is fun fantasy reading. You get a complete story in 3 books. The first 2 aren't even that long, like they're 500 pages, but as far as fantasy goes, pretty short. The characters are super compelling. You're going to be invested in their day-to-day lives because Joe just gets you to love them for who they are or understand and appreciate them for who they are. So it's super fun. Joe makes this world dark and gritty, but the humor is excellent. It's really dry, it's really witty. You're going to enjoy it. There's really good action. There's really good twists. Although the plot is light in book 1, it's heavy in book 2. It's fantastic. There's really good payoff for all the characters. They go through great arcs and journeys. You're going to be invested. You're going to be hooked to every page. And if you end up loving these 3 books, you then get 3 standalones and another trilogy after that you can sink your teeth into. So if you haven't checked out the First Law trilogy already, do yourself a favor, check it out. Stay posted. I've already started Best Served Cold, and I will be letting you know what I think of it soon. It starts really strong, and I'm having a great time already. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much for watching.